Good afternoon and welcome to the show. Charles Moscowitz here. Michael D. Shaw will be joining us shortly, probably by telephone. Um, I felt compelled to go on the air today to celebrate. Hallelujah. MAGA is triumphant. President Trump and the MAGA movement has entered the fray. Thank God. I do think that there's a hand of God. God is watching over this country. This is almost a miracle, given what we've been up against, what President Trump has been up against for 4 years, the very fact that he survived and the fact that we're all here today. I know it's going to be a difficult road forward. I'm not a utopian. I'm not a perfectionist, but we can at least celebrate our relish, our momentary victory. Thank God. Anyone who'd like, and by the way, I've I've been banned from TikTok, so sorry I'm not there. But welcome aboard. I just welcome Potomatic. Thank God this is a day to celebrate. President Trump is triumphant. The MAGA movement is triumphant. And we have created a moment in history that is unlike any in certainly my lifetime in this country. President Trump, we should remember, was not supposed to be there today. And oh my goodness. This was not supposed to happen. They tried to kill him. They tried to bankrupt him. They tried to imprison him. They tried to discredit him and his family. They tried to do everything they could to throw every piece of mud they could come up with. And yet he prevailed, and that he was triumphant. And today he is the president-elect. Hallelujah. Now, I always thought that he would win. The only question was whether or not they would let him win, and I didn't think they would. And I do think they tried to do everything they could to stop it. But they didn't stop it, and Trump probably would have done better had they not tried everything they could, I think, to steal the election. But they were behind the times. They didn't estimate what was going on. Now, President Trump and the Republican National Committee, under the auspices of Michael Whatley and Laura Trump, and they did a wonderful job. They basically embraced the model that was established by Glenn Youngkin of Virginia, who understood the lessons. Mike, here you are. But let me give you the number to call, so you can be right in the system here. That and I'm giving the same number to others as well. 508-637-5596. That's what you called, and you ended up here. Oh, that's odd.
Well, what number did I reach?
You reached my regular number. So what I'm going to do is maybe hang up and try it again. I'll shut my phone off. That might do it.
All right.
All right. Thank you. All right. Michael Shaw is having a couple of power problems, so that's why we're having some technical difficulties. Oh, I see the problem. SKYPE. I need to put this on. It might help if I actually did things right here. The code in Charles Moscowitz. That would be 535-705. 535-705. Sign in. Here we are. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, so basically the situation is such that Glenn Youngkin and the Republican National Committee learned the lessons of 2020. and they realized that they could not allow it to happen again. That being the level of election fraud that took place. So what they did, starting with Glenn Youngkin in Virginia, is that he fielded thousands of volunteers to man the voting booths, to man the counting rooms where they get the absentee ballots, to make sure that there was a Republican there, and he basically put up a staff of lawyers who understood the law and who were prepared to deal with any interruptions in that election and to do so quickly. And the result was that there were very few interruptions, and those that did take place, they were in court within an hour, and they were dealt with. Like if they tried to block access to any of the polling places, or if they tried to inappropriately count ballots or discard ballots, or if they were counting illegal ballots or fake ballots, or those or anything else that we could describe, who knows what. People who saw this would drop a dime, and they would basically let me just see if we can get this thing. And they would deal with it right there. Well, that's exactly what President Trump did, and that's why he won. I mean, he would have won anyway, and he also got such a big vote. But he was able to thwart efforts to steal the election in Georgia, in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, and in Wisconsin. There were instances of fraud. Everybody was watching. They tried to, and in Arizona, they tried to keep illegal aliens on the ballot. And they had hid this from the public until it finally came out. They had lawyers there making sure that those votes would be taken off the ballot because they were not legal votes. They were not connected to a citizen. And in some cases, they were not even connected to any person. There were reports. The Gateway Pundit also would be applauded for doing a great job of reporting this. There was, tens of thousands, who knows how many thousands of ballots that were mailed out to bogus addresses. And there were a lot of reports of this. The Republican National Committee caught it immediately. They were sharp as a tack, and they were able to stop it in its tracks. And the result is, look, Trump would have won anyway, and they're still trying to show up, apparently, in Philadelphia and Detroit with boxes of ballots. So it's not like they're not trying. But the Republican National Committee was fully engaged and fully prepared to deal with the problem. So you had, they couldn't pull it off. And as a result, we genuinely had one of the most honest elections in American history. Now that President Trump has won, thank God and hallelujah. I just love saying that. He needs to, I hope that he doesn't just drop the ball on this issue, and I hope that he does pursue broader questions of election reform. I understand that elections are state by state, but if there is a remedy nationally, and that's something that maybe Congress and the new administration can look into, to make these necessary reforms, then let's hope and let's pray that they do it. What is this? Let me see if I can get Mike to call in.
Hello.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
Okay, so did you get that number thing worked out?
Well, I mean, for some reason, you're not coming in on the computer, but that's okay. We'll just do it this way.
Oh, all right.
No problem at all. So, Mike, we have a lot to celebrate in this country of ours today. I think that the election of President Trump is a miracle. And I also think it is an act of conscious, hard work on the part of the Republican National Committee, which should be applauded, and which prevented the kind of voter fraud. They learned the lessons of 2020, and they followed the example of Glenn Youngkin in Virginia. And I followed this on the Gateway Pundit. They did a really good job of reporting it. That every time voter fraud came up, and by voter fraud, I should be more accurate. Election fraud, ballot fraud, voter fraud is rare. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of unaccountable ballots that were on various rolls in different states. Whenever this came up, the Republican National Committee had thousands of lawyers ready to go and to challenge it in court right down to the hour and get these ballots thrown out. And they did this in Atlanta, Philadelphia, Detroit, and Milwaukee, the key cities in the key states, and in Maricopa County. So this is why President Trump won. He would have won anyway. I think that even if they didn't do it, he got such an overwhelming vote that he probably would have won anyway. What do you think?
Well, here's a darker interpretation, if you will.
Sure.
Yeah, all due credit to Lara Trump, but this also smacks to me of Ronna McDaniel working for the other side, because it's just too dramatic of a difference.
Well, she might, whether she actually was or not, she might as well have been.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't think that they expected such a disastrous result. I think that in spite of the stealing and in spite of the theft and the VOA votes from overseas and all these other things that they tried to pull off, it just wasn't enough to overcome Trump's vote. It was fantastic.
No, it wasn't enough, and I didn't mean that literally. I'm just saying that by Ronna McDaniel being a rhino and doing business as usual, and being an election fraud denier,
no,
in effect, she was working for the other side.
Yes, and as were all of the rhinos, Mitt Romney and Chris Christie and Paul Ryan, who's one of the worst, who was basically stabbing Trump in the back while he was Speaker of the House. All of these guys, Bill Kristol, not to mention the Cheneys.
All these other factors don't seem to be even as large anymore. I mean, Josh Shapiro could have helped to win Pennsylvania, but that wouldn't have mattered anyway.
No, so, and it just, the vote was so convincing. I mean, there's still, according to the Gateway Pundit, there are still trucks arriving in Philadelphia and in Detroit with boxes of ballots. They're still doing it, and they're not going to get away with it. The Republican committee is there meeting them at the door.
and that's what I was saying, in previous shows, that there's no talent on the other side.
No.
You can't bring up the 1953 playbook and keep using it. It doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the whole thing is so ham-handed and so cheesy. I mean, they're trying to do the same freaking thing they did last time, and they were depending on the media. The media didn't even buy it. I'm sure you watched some of the returns. I mean,
oh yeah,
the liberal media, even like people like, what's his name over there, the pretty boy on Channel 5. I mean, the one that tried to screw Trump during the debate. They weren't even buying it. I mean, they all looked crestfallen. Rachel Maddow with a smirk was just off her face. She looked normal almost. The
hardest of the hardcore are still taking the position that despite the result, despite the popular vote, the American public is wrong.
I know, and they're going to lose because of that, because that's why they lost in the first place. One of the reasons, and they're doubling down. I was listening to NPR here in Boston a little bit which is what made me run back home to do the show. But what's his name, Jim Braude and Marjorie Egan, and they're doing the same crap. And it's all because they don't like a black woman, right? And they're all, in other words, we're all racists and sexists, and it's just such bull crap. I mean, then the fact that they would be still, I mean, this is, I mean, the one of the ugliest and darkest moments of this whole rotten campaign on their part was that they stooped to calling everybody Hitler and Nazis. And, people are like, no, we're not Nazis. We don't have anything against a woman. This is garbage. We're tired of this.
I mean, this is a great case of sin clouds the intellect. And you've seen this already in the entertainment industry, that with failure after failure after failure, these movies, they attack the audience.
And I just wonder if it's putting aside the fact that it's really a form of mental illness when you do something over and over again and it doesn't work. Who is it that he did a book years ago, back in the 70s, one of these pop books. It's got this book called The Androgynous Zone or something like that. I mean, it was John Dyer. He was a therapist who researched his book by spending a good bit of time in prison and in mental institutions, studying what people's behaviors were. And one of the things that he noticed about people who were mentally ill and institutionalized that made them who they were is that they would keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, even though it didn't work. And they couldn't kind of get out of that. They became like fixated on this action. And that is one of the signs of mental illness. And that's exactly what they are about.
Well, it is interesting because I think what's happening here is the liberal media seems to be composed of people that, I mean, my shorthand for this is the junior high school model UN type, that they have this particular picture of the world. And that's what it's supposed to be. And when you're in junior high, when you're in the model UN, that's great. But then they start getting into real life. And the way they avoid countering this is they're only with like-minded individuals. So you can be in that echo chamber of being in your media center. But the problem is you're selling a product to the general public. And the general public, in a sense, might be wrong. I mean, if you get into specific issues like, was Betamax better than VHS? Well, in some ways it was, but the public didn't think so because VHS tapes were longer, you record more. Okay, and I'm using that as a trivial example, but the point was that sometimes your idealized version of what's supposed to be happening isn't really what's going to sell to the public, and they just don't see it. And the reason that they don't change is, hey, they've been doing this for 50, 60 years, whatever it is. It would be catastrophic for them to admit, I'm wrong.
They'd probably, they would melt away. It would be like it would be like throwing a bucket of water in the face of the Wicked Witch of the West.
Yeah.
In the Wizard of Oz, they'd melt. All my beautiful wickedness is going down the drain. How could you little brat? It's sort of, it's kind of like, except in their case, it's one thing to keep repeating this thing, that this worldview that's not true or that doesn't reflect what reality really, but that the particular worldview that they are pushing is so nasty and so ugly and so defamatory toward others.
It gets more and more ugly the more they cling to it.
Yes.
And by the way, has Harris conceded yet officially?
I think that she's maybe waking up from a drunken evening. I don't know what the hell is going on, but talk about classless. I mean, she sends out this guy who basically makes a quick statement, and then you see that's at that point I knew it was over, obviously, and then everybody leaves, and at that point I went to bed. It was over.
That was the Hillary Clinton playbook. But I ended up watching Charlie Kirk had a streaming thing, which was just great.
Oh, sure.
I mean, there were these 4 or 5 guys on there that were consulting every possible website and a Twitter feed that you couldn't possibly do on your own.
Yeah.
And getting these updates and being very conservative in some cases with which states they were going to call, and then they started making fun of Arizona with this. I think it was just total denial on the part of Maricopa. They couldn't bring themselves.
No, they couldn't. They even the media, they couldn't. You know, they were like choking to actually declare the reality of it. I think it was only just a few hours ago that corrupt, rotten Secretary of State in Michigan, Jocelyn Benson, who I've been talking about for years, she finally has conceded Michigan. And it's sort of just they don't want to take that bitter pill.
No, because you see, they were right and everybody else was wrong, and it was going to work out like this. And
it was hilarious to watch it. I mean, it wasn't as funny as 2016 because then they really didn't expect anything like it, and they were completely shell shocked.
Oh, you're exactly right, because as much as I hate Hillary Clinton, she did at least have some credibility.
Yeah, and I think that was a shock to them. It was a shock to a lot of people. We all were shocked. Yeah. But this time around, I mean, it was kind of known, and they just looked so morose and so crestfallen. That was just amazing to see.
It was fun to watch because there was no doubt from the beginning. It was just piling up, and the map was getting redder and redder. And there are all these clips that are going out there. Like I think there was one on CNN. Well, is there any county, and I don't know how many thousand counties there are in the U.S., is there any county in the U.S. that Harris did better than Biden?
Oh, I saw that.
A single one.
That was with David. Was it with David Muir? Or is it? Oh no, it was Jake Tapper, and he's looking at it. He's like, "Holy smokes! Not a single county." And they showed the map of the United States, and it was completely blank. Yeah. There was just nothing. It was. I don't think that I think she collapsed in just about every demographic, except maybe one. And that would be suburban, well-to-do, single, highly educated white women. Now, you can attack me for saying that, but that's the core.
No, that's exactly what it was, because it's the same mentality, and this is just tremendous. And I guess RFK Jr. has already come out and saying he's going to dismantle the FDA.
Oh,
which,
my
of course,
God.
I've been calling for years.
Yes. I can hardly wait.
You can do everything the FDA does with a few contractors, and there'll be no politics. So it's it's just a
beautiful thing.
Dawning here.
It is, and the other thing I've noticed is squealing about is this is an assault on bureaucracy. And not only are they saying this, I saw a video of this on YouTube. They have them. It's like a talking head thing. Bureaucracy, 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 bureaucracy. With each one of them making the exact same statement, like somebody sent this out to them and they got the message. And I say hallelujah, good.
Yeah.
Throw out the freaking bureaucracy.
They were saying that as if it were a bad thing.
Exactly. They're so out of it. They just don't see this. I mean, this is what Elon Musk did at Twitter. He cut about 80% of it, and it became better and stronger and more free as a result. Probably more profitable too.
Yeah. Well, it just became big and fat, and it was very much typifies a tech company with too much money. So
and they must be shaking in their boots because they know that the people around Trump and Trump himself, that they understand this, because these people are business people. Elon Musk was in business. Even J.D. Vance, I think he was in business. I mean, all of them. I mean, they understand what bureaucracy is, and they know how to kind of pare it down and turn it into a more efficient machine. And all these layabouts, all these hacks, they know their days are numbered. They better look for a job because they're going to be out on their backside.
Well, and they're completely unrealistic about stuff. I mean, as we had discussed in the previous shows, um, how can you have a job at the LA Times and quit thinking that there's going to be another media job waiting for you?
That's right. Those are plum jobs, and they're disappearing anyways.
Yeah. So what's the upside? Okay. And you're gonna start taking out a Substack column, and you're going to be all bitter about how you were forced out. It's sort of like a riff on Colin Kaepernick, right?
Right.
He was offered a couple of deals, and he didn't take them. Everybody forgets that, you know. He just decided he was going to make more money being a professional race baiter.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Good luck to these people that left the Washington Post, LA Times. There's no upside.
No, and if they can,
industry is done. And what's going to happen to MSNBC with Joy Reid talking about it was all racist and fascist and everybody in the country is wrong?
No, they're going down the tubes. I mean, this whole, on one hand, it surprises me that they're still using that argument because it obviously failed them, and it's insulting, and it's denigrating to about, pretty much most of the country.
Yeah.
And yet they're doubling down, and they're gonna end up.
But that was, I figured that would happen again,
Yeah.
based on what was going on with the movie industry. And all these videos of Amanda Stenberg and Rachel Zegler around, it's all the fans, and the fans are negative, and we produce all this great stuff, and they should love it, and it's garbage. So
well, they don't get it, and the Democratic Party is going to go the way of the dodo bird if they keep that up, because they're losing traction. I mean, it's so out of touch and so elitist, and this old playbook, which comes out of Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, it just doesn't play anymore. No, too many people have been red pilled now, and they'll continue to rally their base, but that base is going to start shrinking even more. They lost this election in a bigger way than you can imagine, and they're going to continue to lose if they keep that up. If they don't reform the Democratic Party and get rid of that kind of woke, hostile fascism, and they don't get rid of lawfare, they don't get rid of censorship, they don't get rid of goose-stepping, attacks on their opposition, then they're going to be extinct. It's going to be like the Whigs. That could happen.
This is almost a mirror when the Republican Party was all rhinos.
Yeah.
You had to have voices come up and say, we really should get more conservative, because the idea of driving off a cliff at 55 miles an hour versus 80 miles an hour is really not a good selling point. And it took all this time, and it took a complete outsider.
That's right.
Remember, Barry Goldwater was a senator and a big political figure for a long time.
Right.
And he couldn't change it. So
no, but this is really almost revolutionary, and already you can see an international alignment by like-minded nationalists in their countries. People like Milei from Argentina and Orban from Hungary, and I think Meloni in Italy, and several others. They're all
a guy from Poland whose name I
not Musk, not Tusk, the other one who was basically removed due to a color revolution, thanks to the EU. They're all coming around to congratulate Trump, and it's really the beginning of a major movement toward a kind of a nationalist, populist, sovereign development. And I think that Trump is, he's going to do some amazing things. You've got Ukraine, which, by the way, now there's video out that shows that Biden basically gave Russia a green light to invade Ukraine, mainly because they wanted to have war so they could feed, trillions of dollars to the defense industry,
Right.
and it creates international order and all the other interests, which is the policy that's been in place in this country since Wilson. And Trump is going to put a stop to that. He's going to probably take Putin and Zelensky and invite them maybe to Camp David and make them hammer out an agreement, because Ukraine now is on the verge of collapse. They've got they have maybe another 6 months, and the atrocity of that and all the losses of lives. I mean, it's really loathsome and evil. And I think that it never would have happened under Trump, and Trump is going to stop it. He said that he could do it even before he takes office, which I think is possible. I mean, Eisenhower did it in Korea before he took office.
Yeah. Well, that's right. That's a good analogy. So,
And my understanding from history is the way Eisenhower did it is that he flew out to Korea and to Panmunjom, where he met with both sides. And he said, look, I'm going to become president in 3 weeks. And if you don't stop this war, I'm going to drop a nuclear bomb on you. And they believed him. And they stopped the war, and it's been peaceful ever since. I'm just saying Trump he knows how to do that. And I think that he could do that. I think he could do it with the Israeli-Arab conflict too. I mean, I'm happy that he's pro-Israel, but he might force the Israelis to make some painful concessions to get peace with the Palestinian Arabs, and I hope he does.
Well, it was divine intervention. I'm not sure we deserved it, but we were given another chance. And it is, again, we've said this a couple of times, the funniest part of all this is they're just doubling and tripling down with the same crap. They just don't get it.
They really don't. And they've now seen that the rug has been completely pulled out from under them. This is a glorious day. We ought to relish it. I know that it's going to be a long slog. I'm not utopian about this. It's going to be a war. But we can enjoy a moment of basking in the sun, for now, and relish our victory, and now get to work in terms of how to define it for people, how to make people understand what this is about, make people understand about, Trump derangement. Why did they hate Trump? Were they manipulated? Yes, they were manipulated by this deep state apparatus, and they ought to take another look. They ought to take another look at this whole movement, because it's incredible. And, it's time to get into the program now. It's not going to be easy, but it can be done.
I think there are going to be more conversions than you might expect.
Oh, yeah.
Because, the old hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. How about hell hath no fury like some wild-eyed optimist who got taken over by this crap, seeing how they were misled, and just sort of do reverse Harry Sisson, right? Oh, well, it was all BS. Well, yeah, his initial tweet was, how could the country be so wrong? And other people are saying that, that the women didn't come through as much, or whatever it was.
Oh, my God.
But it's just not.
It's not flying. I mean, he's talking. First of all, he's paid by an ad agency. I mean, that's something that's been public. And in fact, it's now being said that the Harris campaign was literally paying people to go to those events. Yeah. But I mean, in the case of Sisson, he's doing this thing where he shows up with these two other goofballs, and it's so embarrassing. I mean, they're these white, privileged, empty-headed dimwits, standing there like in front of the camera with goofy faces. They've never worked a day in their life. I mean, and they're like, oh, well, we support Harris, and they make these ugly charges. They're probably all on a payroll, and they're dumb. You could tell that they're just dumb. I mean, It's embarrassing. This is what this supposed to, they say, well, we represent, men for Harris or some crap like that. Really? That's what it's come down to. I mean, you see this thing and you're like, that's a sad state of affairs that they would represent men for Harris or men for anybody. But anyway,
who knows? You may have a situation like in Germany after World War II when suddenly you couldn't find any Nazis. So
well, that's fine. Look at Germany after World War II. Under Adenauer in particular, it became a powerhouse, and they were all former Nazis. Who cares? They all, I mean, Adenauer was not a Nazi, but he was certainly a man of the right, and he was able to negotiate an end to conflict between the unions and create a united economy that turned into a powerhouse in Europe. An incredible story. So if they want to join us and put aside, their past, great. Come on down. I believe in redemption.
Oh, of course.
Anyway,
and I believe you're going to have a bunch of converts because I think the only ones who are going to stay on the other side are the ones who are paid to do it. But at some point, the MSNBC and CNN model cannot sustain. They're only around because of the old cable system, but that's falling apart.
No, they've lost the momentum, and it'll be interesting to watch what happens to them because, they're not going to be able to sustain that, not any longer. I mean, they barely were before, but now this is a big blow to them, and we'll see.
I mean, remember the way that it worked was 80 million cable subscribers were paying so that 400,000 people could watch CNN.
Well, I mean, they got certain deals, like they were piped into all the airports.
Yeah,
and
which
stuff
you
like
don't
that.
see that much anymore. So, well, good. I mean, you seem to be in a much better mood.
Oh, totally. I mean, who isn't? This is a great day. I mean, I'm exhausted. I was up late and I, just stressed out. And I'm sitting there in a stupor on my couch, eating pistachio ice cream. And all of a sudden, something happened on the TV, and I said, "Wow!" And I sat up. I think that it was when I don't know, one of them said something, and I think one of the big states came in, and I was then riveted, and you could just see the whole thing unfold. So I think, like a lot of people, there was like a moment where you realized that you'd crossed the Rubicon, and that they were not going to get away with it, and that the election was going to happen fair and square. And Trump, of course, came out with his beautiful family, and he gave an eloquent speech. And, I think that I think you've said that Trump has been somewhat humbled, maybe after having been shot, and that, he's becoming molded into just a great statesman. It's just an incredible thing. Anyway.
Well, good. We can all relish.
All right, Mike.
It's going to be exciting times now.
Indeed.
And not the least of which is that you seem to be in a positive mood. So don't.
Totally.
Don't lose that.
No. I mean, I'm very optimistic. I really feel very, very. I'm just absorbing it, and I'm basking in it. And I hope that everyone is, including people who didn't like Trump. We all want to see things work out well. I think that everybody's relieved that it was not close, even whether they admit it or not, because then we would have had Mark Elias there with his team of lawyers, and they would have been dragging on week after week. And the liberals were talking about doing that, and they can't do it. It's too late. He got the popular vote, for God's sake. I mean, not just the electoral. Plus Congress.
He won the popular vote, they said, by at least 5 million. And then, of course, it's all falling apart. Don't forget, people say, well, wait a minute. How is it possible that that Biden got 81 million votes? Well, he didn't.
That's right. All of a sudden, what happened? They just evaporated. Yeah. And it is falling apart. And also, the fact that Trump got such a large popular vote shows that those votes came from the so-called blue states. They came from New York. They came from California, from Massachusetts.
Yeah, well, I was waiting for Massachusetts to go red, but
No,
it
no,
didn't
that's
quite
not.
happen.
That's not. I don't. There's not much hope for that.
No,
But
but they didn't lose these classical blue states by all that much. I think it was New Jersey by 3.
I mean, they almost Trump. They held on to Minnesota by a thread, and New Hampshire too. So they didn't. I mean, they lost steam in every single state, maybe except Vermont. I mean, and the District of Columbia. Other than that, they barely held on, and that's why the popular votes there. Both houses of Congress are going to be Republican, which means that little Jamie Raskin is going to have to put away his impeachment filings.
His impeachment filings.
Right? I mean, he does. Yeah, he was talking about this one with Bill Maher. Impeachment. We're going to not certify the election. That's all out the window. Ain't going to happen. Thank God. So, and I think that most Americans, including most liberals, are relieved. It's just so miserable. The lawfare agenda is dead. The censorship agenda is dying. It's not completely dead, but we'll see. All of it is going. It's disappearing. And if the Democrats don't learn that they need to move into a new way of thinking, they're going to be dead too. So anyway, Mike.
All right. Well, great. I mean, it's like night and day with your mood here.
All right.
So
great talking to you. I hope
we'll get the power on.
Yeah, get your power back.
And we will talk to you soon.
All right. Take care. Thanks. All right. So that was Michael D. Shaw coming in by phone. He's having some kind of a power outage. And I've said what I've had to say. I mean, I've been taken off of TikTok for some reason. I don't know what I said that offended them, but whatever. I appreciate y'all joining me today. I'll give out the number one more time if you'd like to call in, 508-637-5596, 508-637-5596. And or you can text me or chat me, as it were, on Rumble, which is the flagship station. That's rumble.com, Charles Moscowitz. My books are available at Amazon Books. Just put my name in the server, Charles Moscowitz, and you'll see a bunch of books come up. That's how I sponsor the show, with my books. So all I can say is God bless America. Thank God it's a new day. It's a new day in this country, a day of sunlight and hope and goodness. Anyway,